So thank you guys so much for joining us. Um, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So you should be seeing we've got this communications workshop for FSC leads on the screen. I have talked to a few different leads, and it seems like, it's a little bit all over the board. We've got some folks who are sending really consistent, regular emails and they feel really good about it, but maybe they're not on social media, or we have some Fire Safe Council leads that are on social media but not emailing. Some who are just getting into communications. So they're looking at developing those systems for the FSCs and working with someone in their Fire Safe Council to help. I do want to say that I think that there's an opportunity that as a Fire Safe Council lead, you're doing a lot, right? You are trying to empower and inspire your people. And that in itself is a lot. And especially because sometimes you find that not everybody in your community cares as much as you want them to care. And so you're trying to help them understand and also learn what their perspective on, I'll call it a crisis, the wildfire crisis, in the state of California and other places, and kind of help them understand that they do have a role to play in wildfire resiliency. And I know that as a lead, you understand that, but it can be challenging to communicate that. So I kind of want to go through some ways that we do it as an organization, because we're sort of doing the same thing of trying to help residents understand the risk and then also help residents with tools to take action and responsibility to safeguard their homes and their families from wildfire in the future and reduce the impacts. So we'll kind of go through some of those strategies today. As I said, if you have any questions, just raise your hand, kind of interrupt me. I won't take it personal. I'd rather answer your question and get through it. But there might be someone in your FSC who doesn't want a leadership role, but they're techie or they don't mind helping with communications. So as we get into this, I do want you to think about if at any time you're like, I'm feeling overwhelmed by this, I don't have time or capacity to do this. Maybe there's someone who wants to step up and have a small role, like doing some communications, but they can't commit to being on a steering committee, or they can't commit to being engaged through the whole CWPP process or something like that. So, we'll kind of go through Napa Firewise communication strategy really on a brief level. We'll go through some ways to grow your subscriber list. So, specifically emails, and then increasing your engagement across other platforms as well. Kind of how to organize communications as ideas. Everything that I present today is just an idea. I don't want to tell you how to run your FSC. I just want to give you some tips and help you think outside of the box to see if you want to restructure what you're doing, or ways to just enhance it, adding little things here and there that might help. We'll get into MailChimp, and then how to engage with Napa Firewise. So kind of here, I built this easy to read graphic that looks at like, what's our communication strategy? So every time, we're looking as an organization on what sort of topics we want to communicate to the public, even to our FSC leads. These are the questions that I'm asking my cohort and myself before I'm just sending the information out to the wild, right? So I'm thinking, what are we communicating and why? What are we talking about? Is it defensible space? Why are we talking about it? So I really got to have that understanding myself. Then I'm thinking, who am I targeting? And who do I want to engage? Because you might say, well, my target audience is everybody who lives within 10 miles of me, but I'm not really trying to engage those people. I'm really trying to engage, for example, the Silverado FSC has multiple like subcommittees with sub communities within one big community. And so the target audience might be the Silverado Fire Safe Council as a whole, but you're really only trying to engage this one sub community. So you really kind of need to break down that audience and who you're trying to reach, because we can over communicate. And as an example, I am leaving on maternity leave next week. I know, 6 days. So I'm leaving next week. And so we've got a contractor who's going to come in and help do some communications and marketing during my absence. And we talked about social media strategy. And I said, it's really important to me that we're not, we don't want our people feeling drowned in communications from us, because then they don't want to hear it. So you want to be conscious of what you're sending and how often you're sending, so that people really want to look at your messaging and don't feel like you're just sending messages often and it's the same information over again. We want to think about our outcomes. So what do we really want to accomplish from that? As I said, an example with defensible space, like if I'm talking about what is it that I want, do I want just a general understanding of what defensible space is, or do I want to put people into the program? Do I want applicants? How do we want those people to engage with us? I want them to sign up. And then I'm thinking about, now that I know my audience and what I want out of it, what's the strategy? So what tools do I have in my toolbox to use? As an organization, we have a lot. And so our toolbox looks a little bit different than yours. The upside is that Napa Firewise supports our fire safe councils. So as a fire safe council, you get to use some of our tools. And I want the fire safe council leads to lean on Napa Firewise and utilize some of our tools to support your needs as well. And so I'm thinking, for me, as what tactics and tools do I want to employ? It's like, well, sometimes I want to use email marketing. Sometimes I want to use social media. Sometimes it needs to be a in-person event, or maybe a virtual event. Maybe I need to send a mailer. So there's a lot of different potential tools that I can use to get the communications out. And we are all, as a nonprofit, I'm also thinking of the dollar spent, and our FSCs are sort of in that same boat of like, I'm trying to use a lot of my organic tools, which don't cost me anything. There might be some times where we do have to use ad spend. For example, if I want to shovel more people into the defensible space pipeline, I'm going to do it organically. And then maybe I'm going to use some ad spend dollars to really boost that campaign to drive results. Or I might bring someone on to kind of help do that. Timing, that goes back to being conscious about how often are we communicating, but specifically, I'm thinking, how long do I have? Am I planning a community event and it's in 2 weeks? Okay, well, the frequency of my communications might be more frequent in 2 weeks because it's really soon. But if I'm planning this event 6 weeks out, then I get to space some of that communications out a little bit. So you need to think about this before you start sending the messages, and just so you feel like, here's kind of my strategy, and it's going to help you feel more organized. The other thing it's going to do is help you feel less reactive of like, we have a meeting next week, like send, right? The less reactive we can be is always going to be the better on a communications, and then your people will feel that. And then I'm big about tracking the results. And the reason I say that is if you are trying to increase engagement at like a fire safe council community event, you've got to know what you did to get the people there in order to know how can I get more people there next time. Because you're either going to replicate your efforts, or you're going to scrap some of the things that you did because maybe it didn't work so well. And you need to look at like different strategies that you might be able to employ because you didn't get as many people as you wanted, or maybe you did and you're going to say, okay, here's what we did. These things worked really well. I'm going to do those and I'm going to add to this. So always think about like, what did I do from a communications marketing standpoint? And did I achieve the results that I needed? And then that helps you know what you need to do next time. And it could be from posting flyers to sending emails to kind of grassroots of like one-on-one asking neighbors to share with neighbors, and so on. Here in this chart, and I'll send out this slide deck as well, I just kind of took those, I took sort of my communications flow chart and gave you some examples we talked about defensible space, but I also said, something that we try to do is just spreading awareness of fire safe councils in general, like helping people understand what fire safe councils are doing. I think I've told a few people that, I'll get emails into my inbox if someone's like, it's just a resident, and they oftentimes what it is they want to know, is my community have a Firewise designation, because they want to provide it to their insurance, right? And so I'm always like, no matter what I say back, I'm always like, please keep in mind that there's a group of residents in your neighborhood that are volunteering their time to make this happen. And your engagement is important. So if you're not already, like, please sign up for your Fire Safe Council, because we want people to know that it's possible because of the work that you guys are doing. So we're always trying to spread awareness of what our FSCs do. My audience would be all Napa County residents. An example outcome is I want to get more residents to sign up for their Fire Safe Council via the email list. And I know you guys get resident signups through your own list, but they can sign up through the website, as you guys know. And then what are potential strategies? Well, I would definitely share this information on Facebook. I would use an email campaign, and then maybe I'm looking at a website pop-up. And I wanted to highlight that here I say use Facebook and not all social channels. And that's just because we do know that Facebook is a slightly older demographic than people on Instagram, even though there's a lot of overlap. So I want to be clear, like, I think lots of people use Instagram, but I do know that the Facebook audience is slightly older, and homeowners in Napa County tend to be slightly older. So that might make a difference. And I'm not, we also know that renters can be part of Fire Safe Council. So I don't want to say that they're not included, but like for me strategically, like I know that Facebook is the better platform to promote for that. But I do some on Instagram as well. Timing wise, I say I might include it in our monthly email campaign. I might run a website pop-up for 3 months to boost Fire Safe Council signups, publish that social post once a week. How am I going to measure that on a results? It's very easy. If I'm running a pop-up on our website for 3 months, I'm going to track how many FSC signups I get in that 3-month window and compare it against the 3 months I didn't have a pop-up. I know we would get more, just because it's a pop-up and people see it first, and then they go, oh, this was my call to action. It was the first thing that I see. But again, that's just a strategy, an example of how sort of we're organizing our communications. And I think that as a lead, you could do this for everything you're trying to communicate. And I'm hoping it doesn't sound complicated. I'm just showing kind of that thought process of to take you through the steps to enhance kind of your communications. Here's sort of this, in my opinion, the resident funnel, and I'll explain kind of my thought process, and then you could tell me if you agree or disagree. But generally, like if we're looking at napafirewise.org, we're seeing someone come in and we want them to discover their Fire Safe Council. We want them to go, oh, there's a group of people who live around me who are doing this incredible work and want my community to be safer. Then they might, well, what we want them to do, right, is we want them to subscribe to their Fire Safe Council to get communications specifically about their neighborhood. From there, we want them to actually open the emails. It sounds assumed and easy, but it's actually a little harder than it should be. And it can take strategy, right? It can take, like I said, we don't want to email them too many times. So there's this balance of engaging content, right amount of email communications in order for them to actually open the email. We don't want them to subscribe and then they don't open it for 4 months in a row. And now their inbox, because technology, their inbox is like, oh, Lon never opens these emails. This must be junk. And now the email inbox is spamming it entirely and they're not seeing it anymore. After they're opening the email, we want them to be engaging online. So we either want them clicking in your email campaigns to an external link, rather if that's like a checklist or Maybe it's a RSVP to an event you're having, or we want them to engage on social media. So if you have a Facebook group, if you have an Instagram account, if you have a LinkedIn, we want them to maybe engage there as well. So just that online engagement, so it shows they're doing more than just opening the email. As we work down the funnel, we want them to engage in person. So if you're at a community meeting, if you're doing a fire resource fair, maybe you're doing a walk with the neighbors just to learn about an opportunity, we want them to engage in person. And then the last thing, the funnel, is maybe they're joining a steering committee or they're becoming a future lead. I mean, that's like the very end, right? You've got 1% here in the bottom of the funnel of someone who's coming from just like, hey, I'm going to be involved with my fire safe council, to I'm going to be like steering the charge here. We know not a lot of those people are going to do it. So that's sort of how the resident funnel works out, in my opinion, for you guys. So some tactics to work the funnel and improve it for you that I've listed out is, I think that every single FSC lead should review their landing page on Napa Firewise website. So we've got a lot of, and we're going to be rebuilding the website, which I feel strongly about. And I want to give FSC leads, I want to make the landing pages better, and I want you to use them more. And I want us to have more information about what you're doing at your fire safe council, so that when top of the funnel, a resident gets to the landing page, I want them to see, like, this is an active fire safe council. They're doing things. I want them to see your communications. I want them to, if you have a Facebook page, let's make sure we're linking to it. And so we want to be able to improve the functions of the landing pages for the fire safe councils into the future, which we will with our website. But I think you should review it, and let's add some information that's relevant and up to date, if you've got it. I'd like our leads to consider increasing their presence online. So especially if you're one that's like, hey, I'm not emailing and I don't have any social presence yet, that's okay. These things take time, and you guys are volunteers. But think about like what you can do. I did talk to someone, it's like, I'd rather you do one thing well than try to do it all and then you can't keep up, right? So it's like, you don't have to be on every social channel. Just pick one. Just pick one, and then you can steer people in that direction. So then you're just updating one thing. And then if your capacity grows and you want to do more, you can. But it's a lot better to be really good at one thing than not so great and just being able to give 10% to 7 things. I think it could be really helpful for fire safe councils to look at, do you have any other organizations specific to your neighborhood that you can lean on for collaboration and cross promotion? So we do this as an organization. I reach out to the Napa Resource Conservation District. We will cross promote events. For example, they just did this great walk with an arborist to talk about the native oak trees. I love that, because in our fuel reduction work, we really want to help restore some of these native oak woodlands in Napa County. So if more people are understanding these native oaks, they would understand that they're really fire resilient. They're native. It's unlike some of these invasive trees that are dangerous for wildfire. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us to cross promote. It's a win-win, because I'm supporting their mission, and then they're also promoting something that we're doing. So I'm getting an even bigger reach. And so if there's like a group of people who meet at a coffee shop in your neighborhood, maybe there's an opportunity of like, hey, can you share this with your group? Or so just kind of, I like to just list those off of like, who are the people that are doing things in my neighborhood that might want to help share our mission that I haven't yet outreached. We're going to get into, it's really important that you track who's opening your email so that you can figure out who you need to re-engage in your community who might have fallen off. And something that I think a lot of people don't do is consider surveying the people who live in your neighborhood to find out, what do they want to know and how do they want to find it out? Because I don't want to send you on down a rabbit hole of doing communications via Instagram if like your neighbors are like, I'm not even on Instagram, right? What a waste of time. So there's real opportunity to just ask questions of, what do people want to know? What sort of opportunities do they want? How do they want to find out about it? And they will be very honest with you that's saying like, hey, I want weekly communications, or I want monthly, or I'd be interested in attending an event every other month. I think that it's an asset to just ask questions and listen to people. And they're going to tell you, they're going to help you kind of gauge your communication so that they're going to be most beneficial. Um, Always understanding that people engage differently. So that's why I do prefer having a multiple ways. So it is nice if you're emailing with them, ideally we email with them. If there's a message board somewhere in your community that a lot of people see, like that flyer board, and one social channel is sort of ideal because likely they're going to be on one of those places. They're either going to the coffee shop and they're going to see the flyer, or they're checking their email, or they're on social media. So I think that consider that people are going to engage differently, and they may engage differently than you do. I love in-person opportunities. I know they're really hard and they take planning, but definitely consider that. And the last thing is just being consistent. So people will expect to see yours. So if you're kind of like up and down with your messaging, then it might be harder for them to engage with you because it doesn't feel consistent and they're not in a rhythm of engaging with you. We are sending our monthly emails from Napa Firewise. We call them the dispatch, monthly on a regular. And I'm already seeing in just 3 months, I'm seeing an increase in click rates and open rates. And I know it's because it's just more consistent. And we'll get into that a little bit. So before we get into MailChimp, I do kind of quickly organizing your communications. So I'm specifically like, how are you organizing the information, storing your client data? And a lot of the time you're not a solo fire safe council lead, you have a partner or partners. And so how are you organizing that amongst all of you? Everybody does it different. The sort of the questions that come into my mind that I think our leads can ask themselves are, how many people are communicating with your residents? Is it all 3 fire safe council leads? Are you all on the same page? Is it now confusing because you've connected with Bob, but Sally connected with Bob, and now Bob told you different things, and now you're feeling like this is a time suck because you're trying to figure it out. So, who and how many people are sharing the messages that you want to share? I'm so sorry that I keep doing that. I have really bad heartburn. Where do you want your communications to live? So if you're getting emails from people within your fire safe council, do you want that into your personal inbox? Is that okay? Do you want it elsewhere? Are you okay with those communications being in your co-leads inbox, for an example? Do you want to be able to store information? If so, where are you storing it? Are you storing it on an Excel sheet? Are you sharing that? Are you using a flash drive? Are you storing it on the cloud? And do you want your residents to view old communications? And so as an example, I've got this screenshot here, the latest news. And so one thing that we can do, and I'll show you, is if you're using a system like MailChimp and you're sending communications out, we can put those into a folder, and then there's an embed code that I get. It sounds complex, it's not. And I could put it onto your Fire Safe Council landing page. And this is an example that I set up with Angwins because they send really regular emails. So now if you go to Napa Firewise website, you go to Fire Safe Councils, you go to Angwin, you can view all of their old email newsletters. And so what I like about this is, if an Angwin resident now goes to the Angwin FSC and they're like on the edge, they're not quite ready. Do I want to give these people my contact information? They might say, oh, well, actually, this information is really helpful. Okay, I'm going to sign up now, right? So there might be something that helps push them over the edge. And that could be your communications of saying like, okay, they send stuff that's really helpful to know. I want to get this into my inbox. So that is an opportunity. If you guys want them to view old newsletters or email campaigns, we can embed that into your Fire Safe Council landing page. After you've asked yourself the questions, here's some things, ideas that sort of we've come up with is it is best to have all your communications in one place. It can be really messy if you're emailing with Joe about a project near his house, and now I don't know, you've got an ill family member and you're unexpectedly out and not on your email, and now your fire safe council lead is trying to help this person. They don't have the context. It can get really messy. So if there is a way for all of the emails related to your fire safe council to be in one spot, it is the most ideal. And in my opinion, it's not necessarily the answer. Gmail is like the easiest way to do it because you can set up a free Gmail account. Storage size is pretty big on a free account. You can give all the leads access to the Gmail account. And so that way, let's say Scott's out of town, the co-lead can pop in and see what the communications have been, and they can chime in, and he doesn't have to like call the co-lead, figure out what was going on. It just kind of saves some time. So that's something to consider, is just setting up a Gmail to keep all of it stored in one place and that everyone has access to. And also it allows you to share the responsibility. And so there's not this like, well, I already responded to them. Well, I responded to them sort of messiness. You can also just assign one person to do all the communications rather than sharing it, just saying like, okay, you're the comms person, you're going to respond to the emails, and then we'll send everyone to you. Gmail also allows you to do file storage. So you can just keep everything in there, whether that's flyers you produce, that's contact lists, that's an assort donation lists. You can just put it all into your Google Drive so that everybody in your fire safe council steering committee or leads group has access to it. And then, like I said, we can utilize your landing page for some old communications. So getting into MailChimp, and there's other systems as well, like Constant Contact. I think MailChimp is like the easiest to use in terms of plug and play information. So that's why we're going to use MailChimp. We also use MailChimp. So here's sort of like MailChimp can give you some options in terms of what membership you want. There's a free version, and most people, not all of them, like Piper in Calistoga has a really big subscription list, but most people have 500 contacts or less in their fire safe council. Does that seem right for most of you guys? Yeah. Okay. So if you've got 500 contacts or less, you can have a free account on MailChimp. So you are not paying for a monthly subscription fee. And you can only send 1,000 emails a month. So if you've got exactly 500 contacts, you can only email them twice a month. You can't email them 4 times a month. But for most of our fire safe councils, 1,000 sends a month is enough. You're not sending more than that. So that is something to think about. There are other options that you can look at, but I did want to make sure that I showed you that there is one free, and then I'll kind of go into this like, okay, well, I only have one audience. That's fine. I'll show you why it's fine. And then also one seat. You guys can share login. Not everybody has to have their own specific login. You can just have like one login for your MailChimp. The reason that I like using an emailing software is because it does a lot of this stuff for you. It automatically shows your email performance. So this is like the last dispatch we sent out. It shows me my open rate, my click rate, bounce, unsubscribe. It'll show me who unsubscribed. I can go through all of these and see exactly who opened it and exactly who clicked, right? If we're talking about defensible space, I can see who's clicking my link about defensible space, and then allows me to target them and send them more communications about defensible space. So if you have something like a home hardening workshop in your fire safe council, and you had 13 people click the link, you can then just email those 13 people and say like, hey, it looks like you were interested in the home hardening workshop. Here's some extra information on it. We really hope you join us. So it allows you to be really specific and not spam everyone, in your thing. So it also shows you what are the top clicks. So you can see kind of like how things are performing. Generally speaking, in email, top to bottom performs best. So the first thing you're including is going to be what's going to perform the best. but it's not always the case. And that's where when you see something's performing really well on the bottom of your email, it might mean that, hey, people are really interested in that. So maybe next time that topic I include a little bit higher up so I can keep their attention longer. This was a Forbes thing from 2024 marketing. 88% of people check emails every day. Isn't it? So it kind of like astounds me. Like we probably need to get off our emails, but there's some other benefits to using something like MailChimp. And I'm going to get into tags and segments. Again, that gets into kind of really targeting your audience. We talked about tracking emails and who's opening them and what are they clicking. The main thing is that you can use templates. And so you can create a little template that you just duplicate every single time. And so all you're doing is adding in text and you're not spending this time building anything out. We want it to be as simple as possible. It's also really easy to share links and photos using something like MailChimp as compared to trying to like insert it into your email draft into Gmail. And then it's not formatted and it doesn't have any like box restraint. So now it's going into someone who's opening it through like Microsoft or Apple Mail and it's going to look sort of funky. You can schedule it and then we can integrate it into your Fire Safe Council landing page. So let me show you guys MailChimp. I know I'm talking a little bit fast because I want to keep it an hour, but any questions so far? Okay. I am going to get you into here. So being a little vulnerable here, I'm showing you guys into the Napa Firewise actual MailChimp account. So disregard, there's a lot of these different kind of emails and drafts, and this is a working MailChimp account. I didn't set anything up specifically. I'm just going to show you guys ours. So the reason is I want to show you how simple it is to use. So we don't have like a expert level account. We don't need it. But obviously we have a lot more contacts than 500. So we are paying for those. What I do want to show you is when you're in your audience dashboard, there's just things that make it really easy. You can tag your people. So let's say you have 100 people on your subscription list. You can tag someone if they've donated, right? So you can put like if they're a donor or they've done defensible space work or I don't know, like resistant to landowner access, whatever it is, you can tag them. And so that helps you create these smaller sub lists of people. And that is really helpful because let's say you run a donation campaign for a project and 50 people donate. I'm going to tag them as donors. So next time I run a donation campaign, I'm going to go filter by tag donor. I'm going to pull those emails of 50 people who previously donated. And I'm going to say thank you before I ask them for more money again, right? Rather than just sending out to 100, I want to treat my 50 donors different than the 50 people who didn't donate because I want my donors to know that we're really grateful. We recognize that their investment and we know we're asking for more money, but we really want them to know that we're grateful for their donation. My message to the 50 people who didn't donate was, you didn't give before, but we really need your help. Right? There's a little bit of pressure of like, hey, you know they didn't give. There's a time to step up. And it might be a different strategy. You're definitely probably asking for them for different money. And maybe for those people who didn't donate, you're looking at opportunities that they can provide value instead of a monetary donation. Is there any sort of sweat equity involved? Can they sign up to distribute flyers? Can they knock on doors? Like what can they do that helps the campaign without giving money, understanding that sometimes not everybody in the community can give money. And in Napa Valley, it's so interesting. I've been on a lot of like donor boards. You know, there's a lot of very affluent people in Napa Valley who are getting hit up left and right to be donors, and they're giving money left and right. So we want to make sure we're recognizing those people and then doing, you know, I think my AirPods just died. Hold on one second. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, great. So
So that's why these tags can be really important and how they can be useful for you. And then there's other things that'll give you your predicted demographics, open rates. And to add contacts, it's super easy. I can either add one person at a time. I can customize the fields of what I want to know from them. I can create segments. I can tag all in their profile. And so there's a lot of different things that you can add into your MailChimp profile depending on what you want to know from your people. These are really customizable things that you can set up. I can also import contacts. So if I've got a big list in Excel, I can copy and paste. And it's a really easy thing to do. It's going to automatically find columns that are similar and try to import them. So you're not doing it one at a time. So the contact management portion of MailChimp is very, very simple. And then when we're in our audience, I'm not going to do it because it's going to show you people's addresses. We can create segments. So for Silverado Fire Safe Council, we know that there's all these sub-communities, and other fire safe councils in bigger areas have subcommittees as well. So maybe you want to build segments by subcommittees so you can email them individually or just select everyone in your audience and email them at once. It's a lot easier than storing in an Excel document, copying the emails, and pasting them into your outbox. When we're building campaigns out, I'll show you what it looks like. So we create a campaign. Of course. I was crossing my fingers there. So we create a campaign and it just wants to know the basics. Who am I sending it to? So I'm going to my list. I'm choosing my audience. Here's where, again, if I have a certain audience segmented, I can choose it. So I can say, I only want to email the Pope Valley Fire Safe Council because I've already built the audience out. That's it. It's as simple as that. I don't have to go copy emails or do anything like that. I can say who I want it to send from. So you can put in your Gmail for an example. So all the replies go to your Gmail. Basically, you want it to send from whoever's going to be replying to emails is where this should come from. So if that's someone saying like, hey, I have a question about whatever that you talked about, that's where you want. We say what time we want to send it, what the subject is, and what the content is. And when I get into designing, there are so many free MailChimp templates. So all of these are just free templates you can use as plug and plays. So really simply, I'm going to say, well, I just want this kind of, I just want this simple text one or this minimal one. I'm going to apply the template. And now it's a drag and drop. You can, I already have like my logo uploaded into MailChimp, so it's automatically going to add my logo. But to change this image, all I do is click on it and then I can go ahead and replace it. And I can upload it with tons of other things, or the same thing. This is a photo box. I click on it. I can add an image. I can upload it. I can find anything in my downloads. I can make it bigger. I can make it smaller. It's really intuitive. And then text box, same thing. I can change my text here. I can add buttons. So you see on the left-hand side, there's all these different things I can add: buttons, image, video, code, surveys. I can social. It's really easy to organize it. And we do know through studies that people are going to read emails if they look more engaging. So if it's just an email coming from Outlook with text, people might open it, but you're going to get a lot more engagement if there's this like, wow, look at this stunning and scary photo from the 2017 Atlas fire. People are attracted to images. I probably didn't read the paragraph of text, but now I'm like, oh, well, I'm attracted to the image. I wonder what the text says about it. So, um, I think that's something to consider. Piper, I think you do a great job of always adding photos into your emails because it gets people's attention. And sadly, wildfire preparedness, to talk about it, is a weird balance of like fear and safety messaging, right? Like people kind of have to be vigilant and sort of reminded that the risk of wildfire is real in order to be prepared. For some people, like they constantly need that reminder. You know, look at today. There was just like a small fire on Soda Canyon. You know, and it was right next to, we just did all, we, in August, we just finished this work, a section of work, roadside work on Loma Vista, I think it's called Loma Vista and Soda Canyon Road. That's like a wind tunnel right there on Soda Canyon Road. And so there was a small, like acre and a half fire over there, but it's such, I mean, when it happens in your community, that's the wake up call of like, oh yeah, this wildfire risk is real. And just because we haven't had one in a few years doesn't mean that they're not going to come. You know, they're going to come. We just want to reduce our risk and be prepared. And so, however, we need to capture people's attention, like we got to do that. So this is how easy it can be. What I want to also reiterate is that Napa Firewise, we want to give you as much information as you want. So whatever tools and resources that you want to share with your communities, like we want to provide that with you, from articles to grant opportunities to, you know, in the dispatch, I'm always thinking, what do people want to do? And it's like, well, the last dispatch, I did a little education piece on Diablo winds because Diablo winds occurred the most in October. And we do know that a wildfire is okay, but a wildfire can become destructive when paired with other weather elements like Diablo winds. Like that's when things get dicey. And so I thought someone might want to know about Diablo winds and like how does that impact fire and when do they happen? So think outside the box of what your people want to know, and you might find that out via the survey. Um, and it could just be you found a really cool article and that you want to share that. Put that in there. There can be a few different boxes. I love using these little breaks because then I can kind of just show that people understand of like, oh, okay, there's more information here. I have a lot of wildfire images, as you can tell. So they can see, like, I can scroll through, and what I always will do is I'll make sure to have a heading because they might not read this unless they read the heading. And how many people do you know get subscriptions to the New York Times and they tell you about this article they read and you're like, oh yeah, you read the headline. They didn't read anything else. So we do know people read headlines, but that might get them to read the rest of it. So using headlines is important. So that's that. We can save and exit, you know, what I can do is I can say, okay, I'm just gonna redo this. So I'm gonna finish later. So after I send it, I'm just gonna duplicate it. I'm gonna use the same layout as I did before. So you'll see I've got the November dispatch in here. It's because if I click on this, it's the same thing that was in September. I'm just duplicating it. And then through the month, I'm throwing in things that I might want to talk about the next time I send it. And it saves me a little bit of work. And I go, oh yeah, I found that article. I kind of put it into my email because I'm going to want to send that later. But I'm using the same layout and just modifying it slightly so people don't feel like it's the same boring thing. But you don't have to recreate the wheel, right? It doesn't have, we don't want it to be a lot of work every single time. Ideally, it takes you 15 minutes to send an email out. It shouldn't take that much longer, you know? And if you're putting too much information in there, then you'll know because if I go to, if I look, sorry guys, if I look at an old email that I've sent out, and I look at a click map. So this is going to show me my email. On the right-hand side, it's showing me where people are clicking and the order. See, as I scroll down, like there's not a lot of clicks here at the bottom. Because maybe the email was too long and people stop scrolling, right? And they're like, I've read too much at this point. I'm not going to click anything down here. But let's say like the Diablo wins. I realize like maybe not a lot of people are going to care about that, but I want to include it because some people might. If Diablo wins, well, now when I go to click summary, if I see the most clicked items, see, Diablo wins are not in the top 5. So I can tell it was not the most interesting thing in the email campaign. That's okay. Some people clicked it, you know? But think about that is if you make your emails too long, people aren't going to read them. They're not going to read the information that you put at the bottom. So it's almost better to have shorter emails that has more helpful and relevant information to make sure that they click it. What was interesting about this email, I'll just tell you, is the Carneros Fire Safe Council is forming. And so we shared this information about Carneros is forming, and then we promoted Find Your Fire Safe Council. This just gets them to the generic fire safe. We had so many people in like Napa East and Napa West sign up for Fire Safe Council from the email. And so what that tells me is I want to do more efforts regarding Fire Safe Council signups. I want to think outside the box of how we really compress that. Napa East and Napa West is not formed. We don't have any leads in those regions that want to form that. You know, they're on like the valley floor. So it's a little bit harder because most people in those areas don't feel like they're at high risk as some of our other communities. But it does tell me like, hey, this was a super clicked link. I want to make sure that I'm including that next month because people were interested in it and giving them that opportunity. Also, this CAL FIRE self-assessment tool, it was the most clicked thing. So it's like, this might be a resource that people want. So this is like the main reason that I really, really like using an emailing system because it gives me a lot of insight as to how my audience is reacting to the information we want to share. And you can do that with your fire safe councils as well. I could go like in depth on MailChimp, but I think what is most helpful is if MailChimp is something that you want to use, set up your account and click around and see, you know, click around and play, and then let's talk about it and have more questions because I think you'd be surprised, like, oh, it's a lot easier than I expected it to be. And then you'd say, hey, I have a lot more specific questions about how to use it. And that's going to be easier. So once you kind of evaluated your communications and thought about, what do I want to enhance, if anything at all? You don't have to. If there's anything you do want to enhance, look at those tools and then figure out like, I want to make sure you feel like you are engaging with us and that we're giving you everything you need. So if you are on social media, send me an email. I need to know your handle because I need to make sure that we're following you, first of all, and then tag us. So if you have an event coming up and you put up a post with a picture, maybe you put a flyer, whatever you put up, and you tag Napa Firewise, I will 100% of the time reshare that. 100% of the time. I promise you, we will reshare your content because we are on the same team and we're trying to accomplish the same thing. And there might be people who follow us that live within your neighborhood that might not yet be in your fire safe council. And I want to make sure that that information is getting out to them. So if you don't tag us, I might not be seeing it. So then I don't know to reshare it. So you do need to tag us, whether that's on Facebook or Instagram, or I've had really great success with LinkedIn. I know it seems kind of weird, but I've had really great success with LinkedIn, engaging with different people in and around Napa County and then their wider audience. And someone's like, tag someone like, hey, you live in Napa, did you see this, right? Like, so there's an opportunity as well in your personal LinkedIn pages. You can share stuff about what you're doing in your communities. If you are sending emails through MailChimp, I think we should embed them into your Fire Safe Council landing page. So let me know. That's a little like, I got to help you get in there and get that embed link and show you how to get it so that we can put it onto our website. If you want to do in-person events and you just don't know what, talk to Sherry, talk to Lori, let's brainstorm. We are here to support you guys. While we may not have the capacity to like run all these events for you, we do want to empower you with the tools and the resources that you need and support you. And the last thing is share it with us. We are sending monthly emails. We don't use the word newsletter. We use dispatch, personal preference. But if you've got stuff that you're doing in your community, we want to let the rest of Napa know. And that could be, we're doing a virtual workshop, we're doing a community meeting. Maybe someone in your community is an arborist and you're going on a coffee walk. Like, we want to talk about it. We'll add it to our newsletter. We'll talk about how great it is. And that could also increase your FSC signups because someone might see it and go, oh, I didn't know my community's doing that because I'm whatever, they weren't engaging the way you thought they were, but they're getting our emails. So whatever we can do to take your information, leverage Napa Firewise is following, I want to make sure that we're doing that to support you guys. So here's some links to our social. You know, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We've got YouTube. We're just not using YouTube as like a communications method yet. We are working on some really stunning video that we're gonna put out and kind of build some documentary style content on what Napa Firewise is doing in Napa County. So that'll be down the line, and I'll make sure that you guys have it. But any questions? I know I just talked at you for an hour, so I'm so
many
sorry.
questions. Thank you, Stephanie. You met with Joe and I over here in Silverado, and it was so exciting to meet you and have somebody on board that will help with all of this. It's like almost the worst part of the job, but I think if we all get on board together, it'd be great. So we appreciate your time here. And
yeah, I agree that it is like if you know, it feels better if you're not in it alone and you can share. I know I'm not in your FSC leads meetings, but you can share tips on what's been working.
Right.
And that can be really helpful to one another.
Right. No, I think you're right. And especially if we're all on the same platforms, that way we can help each other with those kinds of, you know, technology issues, which we all have. So, good luck with baby too.
Yeah, thanks. And when I was thinking about collaborating and cross promotion, and Allison, you and Joe kind of inspired me on that, was it may not be like your local animal shelter that you're partnering with, but it might be your neighboring fire safe council. So you might say, okay, well, I've got about 50 people who are engaged in my community, and then my neighboring fire safe council has about 50, because you have different needs, but a lot of the context of what you're doing is the same. And so if you find a really good resource, like an insurance broker who wants to come talk about insurance, or maybe there's someone that wants to come do a demonstration of a sort, it might be beneficial to do it with your neighboring fire safe council, because now it's less work on you because you're kind of sharing the responsibility, and you're going to get a better turnout, which always feels better at events, right? No one loves to go to an in-person event where there's 4 people there. But if there's 8 now, it feels a little bit better. And so you're able to kind of leverage both interest groups to share the same sort of information, and get more attendance. And then what that does is it creates this sense of community. And a lot of the people who are engaging at in-person events care a lot already about what's going on. So now they're talking about it, and it feels good to be surrounded by people who are also feeling the same way. So it's just more people talking about what we can do to reduce our risk of wildfire, and it empowers those people more and more and makes them want to engage at more events. They want to do more. They want to help with communications and that sort of thing.
Agree. We're gonna do a more of a collaborative party, you know, maybe in the spring, fundraiser party with the other FSCs around us. We just thought we'd be more successful as a team. So we're gonna try and do that this year.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop the recording. That doesn't mean we don't have to stop talking.